All right, welcome back. Hello guys. So this is our first episode back. I want to welcome everybody back for big excitement for this return of this Lifting Nerds podcast. So I do thank for all our listeners for your patience and your continued support to actually listen to us and watch us on YouTube. So thank you so much, guys. It's been a solid minute, about
2 years.
2 years since we last recorded. But we're here to really just update everybody on what we've been and a little bit on new direction of what this podcast is going to look like. And so we have, of course, our lovely Brandon here with us. And we're going to be just start off the bat. What are some of the stuff that we've been doing for 2023 and 2024? Why don't you share a little bit about what we've been doing?
For sure, man. So yeah, it's been a busy couple of years for sure. For me personally, anyway, with moving, I ended up moving from Kelowna all the way to Edmonton, and then we ended up moving again this past, I guess, 2 months ago or something like that. I guess something like that. So just a lot of moving from place to place. In terms of like, physical performance and training and everything like that, pretty much just been taking a 2 year off season. So reversed after my last show, went up to a 190 mark, which is typically a decent off-season weight for me. Then slowly worked my way up to 200, and pretty much just been deep into off-season, focusing on some improvements. The main thing I've been trying to focus on has been my delts, upper chest, and stuff like that. But just continued working with clients. I had quite a few competitors last year. Got another guy, his pro card had Braden end up coming second in his second pro show, then making it to Worlds, which Worlds was just freaking stacked this year. I've never seen Worlds like this competitive before, so it's very cool to see how far natural bodybuilding has progressed. But that's pretty much been the main things that have been happening for me this past 2 years. Just staying consistent with training. Other than that, man, not too much else going on.
You talk
How
about
about
you have a couple of athletes. I saw you brought a couple of athletes back to WMBF. And congrats, by the way. I think you had three pro card athletes last year. Two to
I
three.
had
I think it was three, no?
So I've had in total four pro card athletes for men's physique. Last year I had one pro card. The year before I had one,
No,
and
you
then
had
the 2 years before,
Taylor. Was it Taylor?
Shane,
My
sorry,
bad. Yeah.
Shane
So
Taylor.
Shane,
Yeah,
and then you had
Graydon, sorry.
Graydon. Yes, my bad. Excuse
Yeah.
my name. So you had Shane, you had Graydon. I thought you had one more.
So I had Keith and Donald a while back.
Oh,
Those were
right.
actually my first two competitors to ever compete
Yeah.
that got their pro cards, and
Yeah.
then the other two. I did have another client like Sheldon who ended up crushing it. He did the Kelowna show. We did that as a warm up show where we were not quite where we wanted to be, and then he did another show for the CPA where he ended up winning his class for the bodybuilding, and then I think he came second for, or no, he won the for bodybuilding and classic physique, but he came second in the overall. So
I remember him because he showed up on the only heavyweight at Kelowna. Yeah,
he's
he was massive. I
yeah.
was there. He was really big. So I was actually quite surprised on why, because I didn't know what was going on, because they didn't notify us while we were on the panel. And then they were saying, oh, so he was the only one in the heavyweight class. So then he was stacked with the middle class as well, the midweights. And then he was
Yeah.
like, he's obviously the biggest one with the best condition standing there. And then he's like, why are they putting him on the side? And we couldn't see his name on the panel as
Yeah.
well. So that was,
Oh, yeah, I think they did that last minute to put him in with them just so he had other competitors to be like, posing on stage
yeah,
with. It's kind of awkward when you're just on stage by yourself and
yeah.
not really having anybody else to compare yourself to. So I think that's why they did it. I remember them talking to us backstage and saying, we're just going to throw you in with the middleweights.
That's true. So before that, you had a pretty good, I would say you had a pretty good season last year with your professional life. What about your personal life? I know you said you moved twice, but yeah, you moved twice. Anything exciting personally about what's happening between you, your
Yeah.
family? I don't know how many girlfriends you have.
No, I've just been with Emma there for these past, I guess we've been together almost 3 years now. So it's been,
No. Has it been that long?
yeah, it's been, I would have to double check, but I think it's around there.
All right,
No,
now she can't listen to this.
or she's in another room right now. But no, man, it's been good. It's just been finding a nice groove with training and everything. Been training more in the evening lately. I used to be a really early morning person. Now I'm
Yeah.
actually training quite late at night. So it's been a nice switch up from there.
What made you switch from
But
morning to evening?
originally, because my girlfriend, if I would train in the morning and then she train at night, we just never see each other throughout the day. So we're like, I guess I'll come train in the evening. I have more flexibility with work, so I can just sleep in a bit more. So I
Mhm.
just found it worked out a lot better that way.
How was the transition on, getting used to training in the morning when your energy level is a little bit higher compared to evenings?
Surprisingly, not that bad. Like it was almost within a couple days, it was normal. I
Oh,
don't know. I think it's just because of the food that you get throughout the day, it just helps fuel you more. I find switching from morning night workouts to morning workouts is usually a greater difficulty just because you're oftentimes you end up training fasted or not much food at that point. So it's harder to get used to. Whereas going to the evenings, it is kind of a pain to get to the gym. I found that you're more likely to skip sessions when you're training in the evening just because you're like, oh, I don't like, especially if you've had a long day, you're kind of fatigued. So you're mentally not as excited to go to the gym. Whereas in the morning, usually like, you're waking up. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get up in the morning, but you don't have that same kind of fatigue that comes along throughout the day. So I found that worked out pretty well. I think performances actually probably even went up a little bit quicker training in the evening, just with more fuel. But yeah, man, in terms of everything else going on, not a whole lot
not a
to be
whole
honest.
lot, yeah.
It's just been continuing with work, trying to be the best client I can possibly be, continuing to expanding on the coaching, really trying to focus and hone in more on competitors. I've been finding I've been getting a lot more competitors than lifestyle clients. So like, with my content, I've been really trying to niche to the natural bodybuilding.
That's
So
great.
that's been fun. It's a lot more I find enjoyable for me making content like that than just more of the basic lifestyle stuff. So it's been good, man.
That's
How
great.
about you, dude? How has everything been with you? I know we've chatted a couple of times at the Calgary show, but we haven't been able to chat as much. What's been new with you?
Yeah. So for me, work has been shifted a little bit. I'm in between three jobs and they're all very weird. I'm not saying weird as in strange, but the time and the time that they get busy is a little bit all over the place. But we're really trying to balance where wife is now going back to school. So right now I'm the only one going to be supporting for the family at this moment. We got cats and her, so that's and then living expenses has increased as everybody knows around the world. It's been like this political drama thing all over the internet right now. And so right now, I'm still doing the in-person trainings. Have a couple of lifestyle clients there, and then now with the Calgary season over, with the Calgary there being the last show of last year, we are now stepping into 2025 and new seasons. We're just starting to build up for the new season. So some of you have not may heard, I'm a little bit more involved with the WIBF right now. So last year was great. I am sort of officially part of the judging panel right now, but not really on every single show. Only on shows that once they need me. The only show I cannot be part of the panel is Vancouver. So Vancouver is going to be the show. I'm going to be there. Excuse me. Where I'm going to be helping out and doing all the front end stuff. So which is going to be fun. However, I haven't been seeing a lot more coaching clients for bodybuilding for athletes. However, there are athletes inquiring different stuff based on the competition. So it's not me
Nice.
prepping them, but in another sense that I'm running into clients for posings more,
Nice,
looking
man.
for judges' feedbacks and stuff like that. So that's took a different direction than what I've anticipated. And but that's exciting. And then there's off season for me. It's actually exactly the same as you. What when we last competed, that was 2022 for me, and I think it was about the same for
Yeah,
you.
because
No,
I think you're 1 year earlier than me, right? Because you did the
2021 was your
Calgary
last year, last season.
or mine was 2022. I think you
So
mentioned
same.
yours was 2021, right?
No,
Or
I
was it?
was 2022 for me too.
Or, oh, sorry. No, mine was 2023.
So you
23, and then
did,
you were.
oh shoot, it's been oh shit, it's 25, 3 years. Oh my God. In a blink of an eye. So 2022 was my last season. And from the judges' feedback, we had a very similar. problem for our, not a problem, but we had a similar thing with our physique is delts, overall mass, upper chest. That seemed to be something that everybody, if all natural bodybuilders struggle from, is like that upper chest. So
Yeah.
that was some improvements that need to be made. So I'm still working with Brian
Yeah.
Miner now being part of 3MJ, which is good for him. And now we've cut down. We did a mini cut since July just to see what we look like. And there are obvious good improvements, I would say, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We don't know. So I wouldn't say a very exciting season. It is off season at the end of the day. For natural bodybuilders, off season, we don't really do much. We just eat and live very much the same routine until and let time do its thing.
It's one of the probably the most important phases, but it's the most dry and boring phase because
Exactly, right?
you're not seeing as much physical change on a month-to-month basis, and a lot of times you're almost looking slightly worse as time goes on because you're putting a little bit more body fat on while you're also putting on some muscle mass. So it's definitely not the most enjoyable part of the bodybuilding.
I know, right? So basically, that's pretty much for me. And so I think during the off season, since there's really nothing very exciting physique wise, since we are in off season, and well, actually, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Are there like any during this off season while we concentrate on our professional life? Would you say that you have any exciting collabs or anything like that with your business?
So with the business, it's been more so just tapered towards the bodybuilding. But in terms of collabs with other people, that's one of the things I should probably do more of is collabing with more people. We've talked about before. I've done some a little bit of test judging as well. I've been helping out a little bit more with the posing workshops for the WMBF.
Yeah.
So that's been a fun thing to do. I'll be doing that this year as well. So if any of you guys are listening to this that are from Edmonton and are coming to the WMBF workshops, I'll be at those ones as well. But that's been the main thing I've been doing is trying to help out a little bit more with the WMBF. Um, I don't know this year, maybe for like the Calgary show, I might see if I can do some judging or maybe and do another test judging just to make sure I'm in a good spot for judging. But yeah, other than that, those are the main focuses right now. I was doing a little bit of personal training in Edmonton, but I found it was getting a little challenging getting clients just because I didn't really know many people here. So I found when I was trying to get clients for that, I was getting more clients for online coaching. So I was like, I'm just gonna stick with online coaching. But I don't know. We'll see. I might do some in person from time to time. I do find meeting up with my clients that are from Edmonton and getting some training sessions in and some posing sessions in very useful. So other than that, man, things have been good.
Oh, it was interesting that you brought up that you did one test judge. I thought you did two already.
No, I was gonna do two, but I think I had a client or a couple clients in the show that I was gonna be test judging. And like, for me, when I have a client, I want to really prioritize them. So I feel like when I'm trying to judge, deal with them, I just feel like I can't put my full focus on them. So for me, yeah, I'm not gonna judge if I have clients competing at the same day, just because it takes my focus. And for me, I know if had a coach, I wouldn't want them doing like distracted with something else while they're trying to help me. So I try not to do the same for them.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess with athletes being on stage, you want to as a coach, you probably want to really be there for them. First off, professionally, that's part of the service that we must provide. And I think secondly, I think it's more exciting to actually see and prepare your athlete to its peak condition and its peak physique before he actually steps into the light or he or she steps into the light. I think that's far more important because as we judge or as we test judge, if you're sitting on the panel, then basically you're just stuck there and you're not be able to move and you won't be able to talk to your athletes until your break, which is in the middle and then or
Yeah.
after.
And when you're judging, like you're constantly with the paper, and well, I guess now it's the typing, but
Yeah,
I find you're so sucked into that. So if he texts me and oh, should I have this? And it's like, well, I can't.
you really have no time to actually pick up your phone and the only time we can actually pick up our phone is basically we just take a picture of the lineup and then basically all your eyes are on either the athlete or your screen while we're judging. But that was a fun experience. I look forward to your next test judging and hope you do
Yeah.
well.
Are you judging the Kelowna show? Maybe you'll be judging me.
Maybe, who knows? If they need me, then I might be. But I think I can judge since you're not my athlete. I just know you as a
Yeah.
friend, but then it doesn't, I don't think it causes any bias. I don't think. I will have to talk to Leo about that.
Yeah, I'd be interested too because that's
But
interesting.
But it's a very good segue that you mentioned that I might be judging you or potentially judging you on the Kelowna show, which segues into our main event for competing upcoming this year. You have announced on your social media that you are going to be prepping for 2025, which is this year, and your season is going to start. So, what is your season going to be like this year?
So it's still a little bit loose, but for sure, WNBF Kelowna and WNBF Edmonton. I might be doing the BC Cup. The BC Cup is actually on the same day as the WNBF Vancouver show, which I'm kind of in a pickle with because it's like Kelowna, I have a lot of family there, so it's nice they can come watch. I can stay at people's places. It's not too much of an issue that way. Whereas Vancouver, it's just a little bit more of travel, a little bit more of an expense. So I'm likely going to be doing the BC Cup for the CPA during, I think it's the May 3rd. And then I'll be doing the WNBF Kelowna show, which fingers crossed, hoping to finally be able to get that pro card. But again, you never know who shows up. It's continuing to get more and more competitive each year. So I'm just happy if I can bring my all-time best physique. And I'm really going to prioritize men's physique this year. Last year, I was kind of more so focused on bodybuilding. I was more so focused on getting super lean for that. And I think for my upper body, I may have just lost just a little bit of fullness. So this time around, I'll probably come with a little bit more size, a little bit more weight. Um, Conditioning will probably be in the upper body, will still be good. Just the lower body it comes last for me. So I don't know if I'll do bodybuilding. We'll see. For example, if I do get a pro card or something in the Kelowna show and I want to do the Edmonton show, I might just do bodybuilding and hop in there and see how things go. But main priority for this year is definitely going to be men's physique.
So, just two shows for you this season. Is that what you're
Oh,
planning?
WNBF Edmonton too. So it'll be BC Cup,
Oh,
WNBF Kelowna, WNBF Edmonton. If I do get a pro card in there, I believe there's a show in the States that is around the same time as the Kelowna show. So that could be a possibility just to get. But I can't remember what the rules. Is it if you get your pro card, can't you wait 2 years now before you do a pro show?
you
Okay.
can. There's 2 years now that you must do a pro show in order to sustain your pro card. Before, I think it was last year, they wanted to be within the year or within the year that you
Yeah.
must compete in a pro show after your pro card to solidify your pro status. Now I think they changed it to 2 years, I think, or is it like every 2 years you have to at least compete once to maintain your pro status? I don't know because I don't have one either, so I don't know.
I remember they changed the rules. I think you have to compete within 2 years, and then I think after that, I don't know if you have to compete every 2 years. There was some formal rule change that we'll have to look back. Maybe on the next podcast, we can just bring that in at the start just to
Or
confirm
you can
it.
get your pro card and you'll know.
But no, so I'm stoked for that, man. And then you're competing too. I
I
think
don't
did
know.
you say you're
I
doing
don't know.
the
So I'm very similar to you, but I'm even more loose than you are. So first off, is since being a part of the WNBF team and being part of WNBF Vancouver, that's the show I cannot do anything. So I can't judge, I can't compete. I have to be there, eyes on everything, and running the show with Leo and Charlotte, well, actually helping them run the show on that day. So I will be definitely be in Vancouver no matter what. So if you guys are going to come support your athletes, come say hi if you are listening. And so for Kelowna, I'm still in the air for that. I'm just not sure if the improvements are we can technically say enough. However, we've talked to Brian about potentially if we do compete this year, there's only two ways to outcomes for this season. Number one is we compete this year, and then next year we might, or the upcoming years, my career or my professional life may head to a different direction, then that might not be able, then I might not be have time to compete. So might as well just think about compete this year and then just get it, just do it, and then just stay off season for the next I don't know how many years. So that's one route. Or the other route is just the improvements are not visible enough to make a huge difference between now and 2022. So it's good to see improvements, but let's keep building. That's the other outcome. So we're still not sure. But you were saying that there was a show in US because we were looking at it and we were talking about it. So there is a couple of shows in US while we were speaking, when me and Brian were speaking about it. I don't know about you, but I'm a little resistant to travel to the East due to just the time difference. This 3, 4 hour time difference. And for me, it just fucks up my, I'm sorry, excuse my language, excuse my French. It just messes up the conditioning. You know, as soon as you get off the plane, there's waters, retentions, and the condition just doesn't look as good. Sleep schedule is going to look different as they are 3, 4 hours ahead. So for us here, oh, for you, it might be two hours because you're in Alberta.
I think that'll be probably one or
One, 2 hours.
yeah.
So one might not be too bad, but at least 2, 3 hours for you. That's for me, and it just might not work. And I don't want to spend another 3 days traveling to the east just to stay there early, just to adjust to the time difference. That's expensive on top of that. But we were looking at a couple of shows at the west. There is going to be a show in Federal Way that's down at close to Portland. It's still part of
Okay.
like state. So there's a show there in mid-June, and then there's, of
Yeah.
course, which I think you can seriously think about. I don't know if you want your season to be that long. At the end of July, there's always Muscle Mayhem
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
going to be there. EMJ is going to be there. I think RP has a couple of so Jared is going to be there. I don't know if Menno's going to be there, but there's a couple of athletes. I know for sure 3DMJ is going to everybody's going to be there, athletes, and I think he's competing too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Alberts.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Jeff is going to be
There's
competing.
there's a lot of Team 3DMJ coaches competing this year, I think, because Alberta Nunes, I think, is competing. Jeff Alberts, I think Eric Helms. Isn't Brian Miner like your coach competing
I
too, or
did
no?
talk to him about it. He's like, yeah, itching it, but he hasn't, number one, found a show that works with his schedule yet. So he's
Yeah.
still prioritizing his either his work and his family first. So that he
Yeah.
knows that he did tell me that bodybuilding is always going to be here for him, which is
Yeah.
true. So that's up to him. Finally, I'm actually itching to see him on stage.
Yeah, I'm sure because I think last time he did a lot of density, right? Like
He's,
probably one of the most
he's
dense guys
thick
from
with
Team
like
3.
C's. He's so thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like jealous.
Yeah.
But from when you were competing let's say last season, 2023, it's going to be difficult for our audience to see this, but then it's and I think it's also for very difficult for us to overlook because we look at ourselves every single day
Yeah.
and we may not notice minor improvements. We can see it, but we may not be able to identify specifically where they are. But what would you say your major improvement would be during this off season?
I would probably say my chest, like you mentioned, it's hard to tell when when you're in the off season, you still have some body fat on you, and like you can compare and contrast like from the same body weight, which I've been kind of a bit more like my chest and my delts seem like they have a bit more like a pop. They're just a little bit thicker and denser.
Mhm.
So I think those are probably the main areas that I'm a little bit sick for you, those of you guys watching. So if my voice cuts out, that's probably why. But yeah, I think those are probably the main areas that I've been able to bring up. I think my legs have probably come up a little bit too, even though I'm more so focusing on men's physique. But I don't know. For me, I find I have to train legs. I can't like. There's something about like I always started to bodybuilding with quite small legs. So for me to like go back on legs, it just mentally I don't like it. So I'm still training them quite a bit. But yeah, chin and shoulders is definitely the main areas that I think I've brought up. We'll see once I get down to that conditioning. I think the main thing too is just really being able to showcase my back pose this time around. I know for that WMBF Vancouver show, I was having issues opening up and posing wasn't quite where I needed it to be. So I'm hoping like why this year I'm hiring like a coach and everything and like sure that that's going to be dialed into the best possible. So I have the best chance at doing well at that show.
What would you say difference between your training between and before?
Yeah, so before I was getting coached by Jeff Alberts, and like it was we didn't have like a ton of intensity techniques or length and partials and stuff like that. And the volume was probably a little bit lower than what I'm doing right now. So like about I would say a year and a half ago, I hopped into Alberto Nunez's training group. So he has a training group where he has like a program set up for everybody. I've been pretty well utilizing a lot of like programming and just manipulating certain variables so that I can increase volume in like delts in my chest a little bit more. But I've been doing that just as a way of learning more too. I find looking at other people's programming and utilizing it, seeing what works best, what doesn't work that well for me, has been a really good tool for myself. So I've been, yeah, a lot of Alberto Nunez's techniques with mile reps, with some length and partials, doing a couple different movements that are very like sissy squats, hack squats, and like to get more range of motion through the quad. With the, I've been doing a lot more cable ladder raises. I know there's a recent study with ladder raises showing that like versus cable, there doesn't seem to actually be much of a difference.
Oh, by Menno,
Um,
right? Yeah, I think I shared that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
like weird because like training those length, it seems like now there's starting to be a bit more evidence showing that length and partials maybe they're not quite as good as
Yeah.
people are suggesting. But I do personally think with like back training and with my chest training, getting into that deep stretch position has seemed to help with some growth. It might just be mentally or like placebo effect, thinking, "Oh, this is gonna work," so it actually does work. But yeah, I think those areas probably improved on me. What about you? Do you think you've been able to bring up the delts in the chest as well a bit more?
Yeah, so chest wise, there's a little bit more improvement for myself. Now I didn't see it when I was like fat, but then when I was like kilos down back in the summertime, I couldn't see anything. I actually looked a little bit more skinnier than I figured, just because definition wasn't there. And then now when I cut back, I did a mini cut, so I cut down to like kilos. So I cut down what 6 kilos, if my math is right, over the course of July, August, September, 5 months, so a kilo a month ish. And I'm actually surprised because I've also incorporated, different training variables. So this is the thing about, Brian. I've worked with him for so long that he allows me to choose some of my own exercises. And I figured one of my weaknesses were my arms. They have like mass to them. And I start doing a lot more, just biasing overhead tricep extensions, cable, dumbbell, whatever you can think of. And I found that this offseason, even during the cutting phase, just doing strictly just overhead, I think there seemed to be a good improvement on my triceps, and that kind of brought out the arm mass a little bit better. I found success there. I didn't really find too much success in my anterior delts, or there were, but probably not as visible. Chest wise, pec wise, I think it's visible, but not as much as I want. Lats actually, well, one of my stronger suits were that improved for somehow. I don't know how. I pulled back a little bit on the volume, but I don't know how. It just probably my bad posture and just bad training technique.
Well, with back training, I do find for me, if I pull back volume, my back seems to respond a bit better to lower volume with
Yeah.
back training. I don't know if it's just because it's so fatiguing and like that fatigue if you're going really ham. Because I like when I try to do quite high volume with back training, like freaking toast.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably that little bit of balance of the stimulus and that fatigue.
Yeah. And I think I also did quite a bit of compound lifts. Well, not like barbell. I wouldn't say barbell, just double joint stuff for quite a long time. And I think now we kind of up and added a lot more isolates. I'm not saying like don't do one if you're listening and just do both. You just ham one. And I think I'm somehow, creates this circle of life where we go back to where we first began training and started the bro splits. I think it's
Yeah.
sort of working.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, I don't know, like, I feel like the more I, yeah, experiment and like research, like, it's always constantly like a little bit. So, like, if I'm not like gonna be OCD and like, gotta do everything perfectly, because it's like, you see like studies, oh, high volumes, like, the best thing ever. Some studies, like, well, you can still see like much like results with like slow volume. So like I don't know, I feel like with the research, I'm trying to not to get super hyper focused on it anymore because just with how much it keeps like I'm just gonna stick kind of middle to not take it to one extreme or the other.
Yeah. Speaking of, I think it's a good point that you brought that up. So really adjusting your volume, and we're not saying that you make it get every like frequently. I guess that's what we're trying. I think we talked a little bit like this before. Okay. Let's since you talked a little bit about the entire programming and things like that, I think it's also good for us to just also notice we pre-prep ourselves into in competitions as well. So, what would be some of your philosophies on that?
Yes, like I've this from Jeff Alberts. The first ever time I did a full-on pre-prep cut was my last show that I did, or for my last season back in 2023, where I essentially my peak off-season weight, just to give an example to make easier to understand, I was probably around 10, 205 when I was like heaviest off-season weight. We spent about 2 to 3-ish months getting down to about 190 and then held there for a bit and started the actual competition prep at 190 where we went down to 170. So essentially just start at a healthy position so we don't have to rush the prep. I find this is the hardest thing for most first timers because they go into, oh, okay, like pounds above stage weight and they're like, okay, I just want to start my competition prep like weeks out. So we don't have enough time. Like, are you in a good spot with your metabolism? So essentially, my like philosophy around it is just to get yourself in a better position to start your competition prep. So get to a point where you're about 10% above stage weight. For this, most people, this is about 15, 20, 25 pounds above stage weight, and then start like a competition prep about 24 weeks out. This way, you can go nice and gradually into the show. You can retain as much muscle mass, you can retain your strength, you can feel actually decent for good majority of the prep. The last bit is always going to be very challenging, but it's just going to make the prep that much easier. Whereas if you, yeah, have more weight to lose in a shorter period of time, a lot of times there's a lot of digging involved. There's a lot more harsh symptoms of hunger, fatigue, lethargic. Like these kind of things are going to get super ramped up. So we want to try to do everything in our power to reduce those things and try to have them so that they're not popping up as much, or at least not till the final bit of prep. So this time around, I'm actually going to be doing it a little bit differently. Like I've actually cut down to 100 and like 382 pounds. I've maintained here kind of lean gained, you could say, or main gained, you could say, for about 3 months, and now I'm gonna be starting at like 8 pounds. 84, I guess, would probably be a better number. But yes, I literally only have 14 pounds to lose to hit my stage weight. I might not even have to lose that much within this next. I guess I'm probably gonna be
Four
about,
months?
yeah, gonna be about 16 weeks out from the first show. So I also shortened the amount of time of my prep just because I'm that much leaner, so I don't need as long of a prep. Just because I'm already this lean. So it's just kind of it. So I don't have to be prepping for quite as long. I don't have to be going as aggressive with it. And I'm hoping this is going to be like one of my easiest preps to date.
I would
Yeah.
agree. It was also something that you. I'm glad that you actually that up. As that has been always some of how we would prep others athletes, or I would suggest on how would they prep. However, we're not. I don't think this message is enough on the importance of a. I wouldn't want to say pre-prep, and how I frame it is just like a pre-fat loss phase before you step into prep, what puts yourself in a position where you're about 10 to 15% above stage weight. However, I think it is a little bit more challenging to identify for first-time competitors on what their stage weight is actually going to be compared to they are right now. So maybe I think that's also a good question that I might ask. Would I think it's also a parts of this question off. I think men athletes are going to be a little bit easier to identify, could guess on where their stage would potentially sit compared to females. So probably that's going to be the first part of the question. Would be the time that you would suggest for some athletes to do this pre-fat loss phase and the time difference between for a female athlete, you say, and how would you go, how would you, approach this by taking a guess at what their stage weight would be?
Yeah. So no, great questions, man. In terms of female versus male, like tend to find with most females, the rate of fat loss tends to be a bit slower as well. Just from my experience and what I've seen with a lot of other prep coaches, they typically need a bit more of a longer prep, with some breaks and stuff in there. And then compared to like a male or competitor, it depends on the individual too, because I've had competitors that just drop weight like that, where it's really easy for me to lose weight, but it's really hard for me to gain past a certain point. So depends on like individual, their metabolism, what their experience has been like. Fat loss phases, has it been very challenging to get very lean? So there's a lot of questions that I like to ask people, like what their previous fat loss phases have looked like, how the leanest they've ever gotten to, and send me a photo of them at that leanest. And that gives me an idea of, okay, we probably need to be maybe 10, 15 pounds below that current weight. So when I look at somebody's picture, I have a general idea of what their body fat percentage is just from seeing so many photos of so many people at different body fat percentages. If somebody has access to like DEXA scan or something like that, can be another very useful tool just to really see, okay, like body fat percentage are you actually at? And like if you're at like body fat, yeah, it might be quite a large period of time to get down to that competition weight, where you might be looking at a year, just over a year, just to slowly make your way down, have some maintenance periods in there. If you're somebody that's like body fat starting prep, that's usually a pretty good sweet spot, like 12, 13, 12, 40% body fat while you're starting a competition prep. That's generally where you want to be at. So yeah, pretty much just guesstimating where they're currently at, seeing a photo of them right now, seeing a photo of them when they got to the leanest, if they have a photo, and from there I make some guesstimations on where I believe that weight is going to be. Typically with people that I don't know what they're if I don't have any photos of them being super lean, we'll give a rough estimate of some shows to do. And as we're getting closer, then we can make those adjustments. Like not quite as lean as we should be. Let's look at maybe pushing to a later show. Or if they're like, okay, I'm like already super lean, I could probably even throw in some earlier shows and we can look at doing that. So it's gonna depend from person to person. But yeah, those are kind of things that I like to use.
Yeah. No, it's not the answer that everybody, the straight answer everybody's looking for. That is the actually the honest truth that because this is an individual sport. So yes, people argue this is not a sport, but I am going to call it a sport. So this is an individual sport. There isn't really anything that you compare yourself to but yourself. So that's I guess it also comes with experience, as you also mentioned that just by photos, and I know it's also a little bit challenging because I've seen photos that are taken, very well, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging to see. Not everybody has that access to a very nice camera. But I think phones right now, cameras are good. But then this is also that's also very hard for us. So if you are thinking about competing for the very first time or even your fifth time with them, that's why we do consults for every individual. So coaches like myself or Brandon will ask you like a ton of questions on your kind of and where the leanness you've been, like also mentioned. But I think you make a really good point. I think you also use some clarity to some of our audience on a little bit of the time frame for expectations. Of course, everybody's going to be different, so just don't take this one cookie cutter and apply it to like, everybody's going to have to cut for 24 weeks. Everybody has to cut for like a year. So as you did mention, if you're like percent body fat over stage weight, then yes, you may potentially need weeks or plus. Who knows?
Yeah.
But as I think you have to make sure you don't miss out any details that said. He did say that you cut and then you throw in maintenance phases in there. So that's also just part of important on importance of periodization. If you have not looked into that, there's many studies proving that this has worked as well. But what would you say, like, you are actually, a little bit more first-time athletes or people who actually want to compete naturally. Since you've talked to individuals or athletes, what would you say their goals, of course, for competing are going to be, of course, win a pro card
Yeah.
and winning, divisions. I think this is the most in the room. But would you say why their would be their main drive to actually want to compete instead of
Yeah.
just winning? Nope.
A lot of times it's just people, especially when they're coming out of like their high school and like their sports are ending, they don't generally have like a competition drive anymore, so they're kind of do something hard, and that's where I see like a lot of people coming to me from sports backgrounds or like sort of like generally like hard shit, like maybe they've done marathons before, maybe they've done like or something that's like fun demanding and they crave that. That's where I see a lot of people are like done this before, like seems really cool. I want to try this out. That's one of the main ones. Some people do it for the wrong reasons where they think, oh, this is how I'm gonna get super fit and healthy. For those kind of people, I try to steer them away from that or like try to just talk about why we should potentially be competing, how like it's cool to get super shredded. Like, I love the kind of from it and everything like that. Like, there's always going to be some level of like body image that comes along with it. But just understanding that there's those phases. I can't be just super shredded all the time, or else you're not going to feel good. You're probably going to have a bad rebound back up and stuff like that if you're not careful. So just, yeah, let them know, like, got to be doing this for some internal, for more of a, can't think of the word for it, but yeah, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I actually do. I actually know exactly what you're talking about. I was just gonna see if you could pitch it in. But I think that's a really good way to kind of dial in where why I actually asked this question on motivation behind athletes coming into you, asking, questioning them, about competing and stuff like that. So I think we can actually all share a little bit. I think we have actually talked about this, back at season one, where is your main, drive to actually wanting to compete in natural bodybuilding. Yeah. So that would probably be my question for you.
Gotcha. I would say it's like for me, like I've talked about with like people with the sports growing up, it's always been testing those limits. I always have that crave for like how far I can take things. So when I, especially with my body, like I used to do some running, I used to play sports and stuff like that. But then just the sport of bodybuilding, there's just something about it that just takes so much more energy. I find like you like a 24-hour thing where they gotta get your sleep, you have to be tracking your nutrition, you have to get in your training sessions. It's something that you have to really lock in. And I find every time I go through this process, I just learn more about myself. And like it helps me kind of if I'm finding that I'm a little bit all over the place with maybe like or I'm not being as productive. I find when I get into a routine with competition prep, structured really there, I can my productivity is so much better. My work goes better. So it ties into a lot of other parts of my lifestyle. So yeah, it's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah, that
About
should be
you,
awesome. Hmm?
what about you? What would you say is like biggest reason why you like competing in natural bodybuilding?
So that's yes. I would share this as I didn't start off very similar with a lot of how your competitors or athletes came to you having a sports background. I did not have a sports background. So you would say like entered natural bodybuilding for the wrong reasons. Yeah, part of those the population going into it for the wrong reason in the beginning. All I
Which
wanted to do, yeah,
do you think is fine sometimes as long as you have the right direction going into it.
yeah.
I feel like if you have that direction of just like you're trying to like can sometimes make it so that people don't want to stay in the sport if they go into it with just that reason. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I've just wanted to be jacked.
Yeah.
I was always very skinny. I weighed my lightest weight. I think it was coming out of college, and only weighed like pounds, being at like
Yeah,
foot
yeah.
nine,
Yeah.
125 pounds at
Yeah.
5'9".
Yeah.
I was literally like a kite if I had to wear like shorts and like baggy wear. I was literally a
Yeah.
kite. All I just got to open my arms, and I was a kite. I could fly. Though, so I kind of my foot into bodybuilding, hiring a coach just for the sake of wanting to put more mass, but it was for the wrong reason.
Gotcha. So like me getting into lifting was for that exact reason.
Yeah.
For the bodybuilding aspect, I wouldn't say it was specific. Like there was probably some parts of me that were kind of a little bit in the tension from bodybuilding. Like yeah, originally into working out was yeah, stronger to impress girls and shit and like some thick dude where I was quite on the skinny and I wasn't quite that skinny, but I was yeah, I was pretty skinny for sure too.
Yeah, problem was the coach that I went to, he was an enhanced bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And by back then I was naive and didn't think that there were PEDs then. So
Yeah.
dumb me thought that, oh, I could do this naturally, but he was enhanced. So I thought it's like, oh, I could look like that, you know. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of to so that's how he also trained people as well. It's like, oh, you want to look like, then you just lift, and how I got into it. And then until the day is he invited his and all those people to come watch his bodybuilding show. And I was like, oh, look, this is exciting. It's like so good and make it look so easy. And then until you do it the first time, it's like, ah, shit, this is hard.
Yeah.
But then it's very, very, the first show, it was very fun. I found a lot of fun the moment on stage. So that was the most exciting part for me. So that's why I want to do it. Like enjoy the
Nice.
moment on stage. Prep for me, cutting is honestly easy. It's just the same as you. Cutting down is just like a breeze. And it's bulking for me. So that's like for every natural bodybuilder, bulking is and packing more muscle as age goes on, it's definitely harder. So that was the big thing for me as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes sense, man. Makes sense.
what would you yeah, question for me. Yeah, sorry, I'm just cut you off.
No worries. Go ahead.
Yeah. You did mention it. I'm just going to ask you this again. Now, what was your stage weight 2023?
So 2023, I think I got to the lowest weight, like this, not my stage weight, but I got to around 165 pounds. On stage, I think I was around 169, 170.
Ooh.
So that's around my stage weight. I think probably this year I'll probably be around 172, 173.
Mhm.
Maybe even a little bit heavier, especially with the carb up and everything, just for men's physique, because I don't have to be having like the glutes or hamstring tie-ins and stuff like that. But we'll see if the process is like amount easier than the last time I did it. I might even chase a bit more conditioning,
Yeah.
but we'll see how things go.
Yeah. So sorry, what were you gonna say before I cut you off?
Um, oh, I think it was about like being on stage. You mentioned being on stage was the thing that was you enjoyed a lot about
Yeah.
bodybuilding. I find for me, to be honest, like posing the being on stage doing that stuff, I don't enjoy that as much as like the process of going through everything. Like shred it and like some photos and video like and stuff like that. But like being actually on stage like that I don't get like a ton of enjoyment out of it. I just think like as I'm going through this process anyway, I might as well hop on stage to like that program to but yeah, I think the process is the thing that I get the most reward out of rather than kind of on stage like I had shows where I won and then I ended up losing the overall at the show and then I was like oh but I wanted to win the overall, so there's always something that you want to chase that you almost never feel good until you get that, but then you get that and you're like oh but then there's something else, so I try not to focus too much on that and just focus on enjoying the thing because I've had shows where I was so focused on winning that I didn't do that well at the show, and then the whole experience just kind of that great. Like it's because I was so focused on that. So I find if you can just enjoy like you going on stage and enjoy the process leading up to it, see how far you can push yourself. I find that's where I get the fun. But yeah, just me anyway.
No, that's a really good point you point out because so we also did mention on, having, going on stage for the wrong reasons. This is one of them. And it's inevitable for every first-time competitor or even experienced competitors to actually want to step on stage for that reason that I just talked about. Even though it's enjoying the stage, everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
Or else why compete?
Yeah. When I say that too, like obviously want to win, like I want to like that trophy, I want to get the pro card,
Yeah.
like to make it to Worlds one day. Like it was something that's like I want to do. It's just those aren't probably as
It's not your first
I don't
priority.
yeah.
Shouldn't be your first priority.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
agree with that. Yeah, I think I really agree with that.
Sweet, sweet.
But why I actually, to asking your stage weight and what your goal stage weight is, I do encourage everybody to have your own goals as well. Though if you're a competitor, if you're just hitting a your lifestyle, if you actually have a goal, if you're working with a coach, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have one set, if you have one, really encourage you to stick with it. Share with us what you have, and we'll invite questions or topics if you guys want to hear in future episodes. We can definitely about it and talk about it. And if we have enough question, we may even do segments, let's say Q&A live. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
I'd be game because you can do that on YouTube, right? Like
We can
the
actually do it on YouTube. Yeah. So you can
sweet.
actually catch us. Yeah, you can actually catch us on YouTube as well. We will load this video on YouTube and just both talking to each other like this. Anything that you wanted to add before we close?
No, yeah, I think that's great, man. Like, yeah, for how the podcast is gonna go on, from episode to episode. Like we were kind of about this before, officially relaunching this. I think we're gonna keep these conversations a little bit more casual and just whatever comes up. I think we'll have it flow a bit nicer that way.
Yeah, that's why I've also invited to come and leave comments in the sections or on mainly two platforms. You can leave it on the YouTube comments down below, or if we do post this on Instagram on as reels or something like that, leave comments down and if there's like specific stuff that you want talked about, or if you want to know, then we're more than happy to share that as well. So if not, we're gonna close this episode out. So thank you for everybody who tuned in. We will see you in the next episode. So remind you all, to follow on Lifting Nerds podcast on Instagram and on YouTube as well. We will be there looking at all the comments for questions. But yes, so thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.